Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bryan podcast. We're a bit earlier than normal today. We've got a special guest in the studio who I'll introduce shortly. But yeah, our mates from Safi and Airlink are probably only starting their sixth sector today, so they might miss out on the show. Dave Roux from Pilotinsure. It's awesome to have you here. It's about time. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Bryan.
Yeah, welcome. It's been a while. We've known each other. We got to know each other well during the pandemic, and we share sort of mutual interests. One of them being podcasting. So we'll chat about a bit about that today. But first off, Cuz, well,
yeah, can you, pal?
You've had a busy week.
Yeah, I have. I have had a busy 2 weeks. How's it, Dave? Welcome.
Thanks, Ryan.
And it's lucky to have you in the studio today, man. As Bryan said, we've been waiting a couple of weeks for this, and it's exciting that we have you with us, and quite keen to hear your story.
We've been watching him online a lot the last couple of weeks. Hey? I've got to know his face quite well. Although, let's face it, anyone in aviation knows Dave's face.
Well,
I think so. Particularly, look, I mean, you guys, yourself in France, were, two guys very sort of out there during the pandemic, the same as us.
Yeah.
And I think we'd both agree we took it as an opportunity to not force ourselves into the industry because we were already in, but there was this need for a bit of talk about aviation, and you guys were doing live events and webinars, and you were trying your hand at things, and and it was awesome, and you've done a great job. But maybe just give us a bit of background, our listeners a bit of background, Dave.
Very nice. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me, guys. It's a privilege, and like I said to Bryan earlier, it's a bucket list item that I can now tick off that I've been on the Bryan Air show. Bryan Air podcast.
I won't be the last time you'll be on again.
Lovely. Yeah, man. Pandemic. I mean, we've heard that word 1,000 trillion times.
Yeah.
And we did exactly the same thing. I mean, we took the opportunity to communicate with the market, to communicate with aviation in general. Being insurance people as a broker, we pull a smosa. That's how we're seen in the market. So every time we come knocking on the door often gets like closed in our faces. And that was the way before the pandemic. And I actually have, there's very few things to thank COVID for, but when it hit, it was people started listening to other people they weren't ordinarily prepared to listen to. Number one, people were locked down, so they had a bit more bandwidth to hear people out. And they were like, well, the old way was completely thwarted, so let's try and find something new. That's what I saw happen in the market. And there was a hell of a lot of movement and just kind of people willing to listen, and we have that to thank for we have COVID to thank for that, but like I said, not much else to thank for COVID. 100%. But so I mean, if you more to your question, Bryan, a little bit of background about who we are and Pilotinsure and Dave Roux and France.
Dave, stick to the program, please, Dave.
I'll eventually come back. I'll circle back. Man, so we're Pilotinsure. We're not a huge team, but we make it look like we're big because we get out there a lot. France started the business, France Smith. And I mean, he can tell the story very well. So I'm going to try and do it some justice today. As a broker, when you start off, you get a 2-week training period. As into Liberty, they give you 2 weeks training, and they say, okay, off you go sell. You're like, bliksem, where am I going to go sell? And they say to you, write down a list of the 3 F's: your family, friends, and other fools that you can sell to. that are going to listen to you.
That's a little bit like, sorry to jump in, you can carry on, Dave, but starting a podcast, we're going to talk to you about a bit that later, but trying to get people to actually listen to your show, that's the exact same people.
Your family, your friends, and any other fool that you can get to subscribe.
Sorry, carry on, Dave.
Exactly right. I mean, the family and friends list gets expended quite quickly, and then you look around, like, what are the networks I'm a part of, all that kind of stuff. So Franz was actually learning to fly at the time down in Mossel Bay, and he went around to his pilot friends and was like, "Come, let me have a look at your stuff. Let me look at your insurance." And I'm probably getting the story wrong. Franz, just comment and get the thing right there if you can. But, so he went around and started looking at the pilots and the instructors and the private guys, and started noticing, like, this is not what it's supposed to look like. There's a lot of pitfalls, a lot of gray areas, a lot of exclusions on these policies. And he was like, no, let's try and get this right. And as a newbie broker, no underwriter or senior oak's going to listen to you. But Franz is away. He's got a bit of a magnetic charisma and a bit of infectious way of getting people to listen to him quite well, which is probably why he's good friends with me and why I've been brought into the fray as well. But through that exercise, managed to, that was the starting point, and then managed to kind of slowly but surely tweak and improve the way that pilots were treated by underwriters. I mean, historically, and I don't want to go into the whole thing, but historically, only very select pilots got proper loss of license cover, and everyone else was like, you'll get your claim if you chop your arm off completely and you're blind in one eye and a brain injury. Then you'll get all your money, And
just careful with that, Fry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
There might be a few guys.
I was about to say. Sounds like minimum requirement on a CV, man.
There might be a few guys at Netcare this afternoon with a chopped off arm.
Well, okay, so no, let me recount. So, so basically, France made it his mission because he saw what the guys had. Let's call it the national carrier pilots at the time had a proper loss of license. You lose that class 1 medical, you get your money.
Yeah,
simple as that. Like, whatever's on that criteria list. Have you ever checked out what that list looks like?
That's huge.
It's huge. Cardiac, pulmonary, like all the different things. So France literally made it his mission to go and say, let's get that for all the commercial pilots. That's what they signed up for. They signed up for commercial pilot. They want to be a pilot. They don't want to have to lose their arm, but you're not disabled enough. You can, or you get the diabetes, for instance. You're not disabled enough. Go and work in ops.
Yeah.
Come get a job at Samira.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but yes. So over years, it obviously didn't take one foul swoop, but over the last 8-9 years that we've been hammering at the underwriters' doors, the reinsurers' doors, all that kind of stuff, we've managed to get it right for any kind of commercial pilot, where airline contract, commercial crop sprayers, helicopter, Bambi bucket, Hoyas in the DRC, all the way down to instructor level. We flipping got it right, so they give them the proper true loss of license that pays out on a class 1 medical invalidation.
Okay.
Sales pitch over.
Yeah. Ryan, you can go first.
Look, I mean, it's obviously quite something that you guys have had to pull off, and look, but it's quite cool that it's led to what you're doing now, which is probably a little bit more exciting, and by the sounds of things, I mean,
has the company grown during that period? I mean, there were 2 ways to do it. Obviously, the pandemic happened. We don't want to talk about it too much. I suppose we're going to be talking about a fuel pandemic at some point in the near future. But look, it happened, and I think there were 2 ways to look at it. You could say, well, doom and gloom, and things are going to be bad for a while, or see it as an opportunity. And I get the impression that you guys did really see it as an opportunity. You've obviously had a lot of really experienced airline pilots coming to you guys as well, and not only looking for possible job opportunities, but also guys were in search of communities, and I think you've been quite important in the South African aviation community, because you've created one, and you might not even realize that yourself, but you have created a community. And maybe inclined to disregard those things sometimes, but it's no small feat, and I know it takes a lot of work. So I would personally like to congratulate you guys for doing what you've done. I think you've done a really great job, and long may it continue. The industry needs guys like yourself in France, and Pilotinsure to keep doing what you're doing. We'll talk about the other sort of stuff that's sort of tied into that a bit later on. But Ryan, I saw you trying to say something there. Sorry, man.
No, not at all. Like I was saying, it's just it's obviously everything that you've done over the last 8-9 years has born opportunity to what you guys are up to now, and it's exciting and it's cool that out of all of this, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead, but there's been a podcast that's come out of it.
That's the best part.
Yeah,
that's the best part.
But obviously, we're going to get to that in a bit.
Has Pilotinsure changed in this? I mean, obviously, you said France started off. He had this idea. He wanted to offer a better product to pilots.
Correct.
And I really like that, and Ryan would vouch for this as well, because we were in an airline. We were like any airline these days. You must take out this policy. It's with this organization, and you sign the piece of paper, and off you go. You never think about it again until your airline goes bankrupt, and they say, "Mr. Parrock, where can I transfer your 4,500 rand that you've invested
over the last 10 years?
That's near zero because you're paying an exorbitant amount of penalties and all sorts of things involved." And it left such a bad taste in my mouth that I just said, I don't want to do that. But the case is, not everyone is like that, and here's a bunch of guys actually trying to do right by the industry. I mean, we had loss of license things and that, and it wasn't until some of our colleagues lost their licenses did it make us sort of go back and think, should we go take out another plan? Because they were in like, it's like, well, I thought I had this, but you don't.
No.
So it's not a nice situation.
That is our, where we see it on a weekly, almost a daily basis. The guys are like, no, it's cool. I've got my loss of license. I've got the company stuff. I've got this. I've got that.
You sorted.
I'm sorted. Yeah, I'm sorted. And we show them. We say, just show me what that schedule looks like. And I can tell you now, the 6-month waiting period before you start to claim, the way that it gets paid out, the fact that there's so many little, gray areas and little clauses that say, no, but you need to work inside the building for a year.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So there's
before you can
do that, and that's something that we see. International airlines, local airlines, all over the place, and it's something sad that, like you say, you think you're trusting the situation, you're trusting this piece of paper that you're signing, and then it doesn't work out.
Pilots hate paperwork, so it's like when you get given that stuff, when you do your induction into airline, they're throwing things at you like, you must get access cards, you must do this, you must do that, you must give us copies. They give you this piece of paper like, oh, this is your loss of life. You sign it quickly, poof, and you run. You don't really take time to go and sit and read that fine print.
No, exactly.
And you think you're cool.
Yeah.
So these guys are actually putting in not only doing something for the community, but I think as a product, it's a good product, and people have vouched for your product, by the way.
Okay.
So people in the industry have said the guys do push out a good product.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear.
So the important stuff,
let's get to the next.
So Dave, you're really encroaching on our podcast world here in South Africa. We were sitting quite proud. Can we call ourselves the premier podcast in Africa? and there this guy comes along, and now he's also doing a live stream. But
I'm coming for you.
He's coming for us. But Dave, I think it's great, and we mentioned it. It's podcasting is this quite a unique little business, if you can call it that, where it's so small worldwide at the moment, with so much potential, that the more podcasts there are, the better that they all do. You need podcast people to listen to these in general, and our listeners will listen to you, and vice versa. So it's a fantastic medium from that perspective, and it really surprised us. It's been quite an amazing thing to be a part of, actually. And so you've got 2 podcasts.
2. I thought I'd outdo
You're going big.
I'd outdo the premier podcast, Kings of Africa over here, and I'm gonna launch 2 at the same time. You know what, like, and that's also again something that happens with us. You know, we say let's go and do a safety meeting at a flight school. And then that safety meeting very quickly turns into an airport-wide safety meeting with 6 different flight schools and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's again me and France. As soon as we start getting chatting, it's like the ideas just explode. All right. Now, for the podcast and how it came around, I told you guys the story a little bit earlier, but basically, because of our involvement with SAPFA, the South African Powered Flying Association, we're helping run and helping put together the speed rallies every year, okay, which are a very cool format of flying. If you need to know more about the speed rallies, jump onto my podcast.
Link in the show notes.
And how that came about was like, well, we need to bring more attention to the speed rallies. We were thinking, let's try and live stream the event. But the logistics and the costs around that get a bit out of hand. And so we've had a guy, Erwin from Backsports, come to us, and well, we actually approached him and said, how can we do this? And we've worked out a nice hybrid solution that we don't live stream the entire event, but the very cool, important parts of the event that are interesting to viewers and have a nice sort of sensationalism to them.
Okay.
That he was like, well, let's do that. And then he said, well, what's the cost of that? Well, I asked him, obviously, and he was like, well, you know, you're going to be writing checks for days, months. So I said, whoa, okay. Obviously, to get that right, we need to go on a sponsorship. We need to go on an interest from more of the industry and all that kind of stuff. And we were sitting in our boardroom, Pilotinsure headquarters here in Bonera Park, and he looked around and he said, well, why don't we do a podcast? You know, why don't we do the event and that hybrid solution of live streaming and post-production video that we'll show, and at the same time we do a podcast pre and post build up and, you know, breakdown of every single air race or speed rally that happens.
Yeah.
And that's where it was born out of. It was just like, yes, of course.
It was an obvious choice.
It was an obvious choice. And obviously my mind immediately went to Sim era and to the Bryan era, and I was just like, I have to unseat the podcast kings. This is where it starts, my opportunity.
Dave, it's a dangerous thing what you're saying, because my co-host here, Ryan, he's like, I do this thing every now and again. If I can really get him riled up about something. So what I do, I take like a screenshot that someone has done, and I don't do anything about it, and I send it to Ryan and I say, what do you think about this? And he comes out firing. But yeah, I must say, both of us were definitely supportive of your show. We watched I've seen 3 of your shows actually. There was 2 speed rallies have gone out, and they did a safety success at Rand.
Correct.
And I thought that was excellent, because it's exactly what we're talking about. It's influencing the industry in a positive way, and you simply cannot be opposed to that, because if you are, then you're going against what we stand for. So I really do appreciate what you're doing there. I think it's fantastic, and long may it continue.
Thank you very much, Bryan. That means a lot coming from you guys, really.
No, it's the truth. You know, this show's a bit bit banter sort of ish, and we had lots of challenges starting the show. I mean, myself and Ryan, we sat and what about this, and I think people like to hear about those challenges, because although we're talking about podcasting, I think they relate to anything that you start. If you start a new business, it's exactly the same thing. And it's been a while, obviously, since you and France started up the Pilotinsure, but you're now starting something new in the podcasting. Challenge wise, is it as straightforward as you thought?
Oh my gosh. So I must give you guys accolades. The studio setup in here looks super professional. It looks like a guys with years of experience have come in and done this. So it's like it's
Thanks,
proper,
Dave.
and I can see there's a true investment of time and energy and money as well, I'm sure, but blood and sweat, I think, even more so, you know.
Thanks, Dave.
So we're lucky that we've actually got this professional team that comes in and sets up our studio for us every time we do a podcast. So we're quite lucky that way. But I must tell you, like we said earlier, there's a lot of admin behind it. There's a lot of organizing, writing the scripts, and well, it's never really scripted, but you kind of need to follow some kind of format, trying to get guests on, and especially it's a new podcast. So, I don't have a queue of folks trying to knock down my door to get on my podcast just yet, but which, guys, you're welcome to give me a call and get on the podcast.
Well, now that we're talking about it, I mean, how can people, what should they do there? Just get hold of you. We can put your contact details in the show notes there, but is it just a case of, Dave, I want to be on your podcast, or is it a bit more involved?
Absolutely. I mean, get hold of me. My email and stuff will be on there, but the Facebook page is really where it's going through mostly now. Speedraally.co.za is also the website that it's on. And then the Speed Rally Facebook page is where we live stream it to every time. So, I mean, but reach out to me through that, and yeah, absolutely. Would love to get in touch. And I mean, put my contact details in there, just don't let any crazies get hold of me,
Well, Leon got hold of you
mostly
already.
crazies that watch our show.
Yeah. There's been quite a few podcasts that have influenced certainly myself and Ryan in a positive way, non-aviation ones.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this a lot of times. I don't want it to sound stale, but I always felt like I had a little bit of an advantage because I was listening to these podcasts coming to work, and they add a lot of value. Is there anything else that you're listening to there that you can recommend other than the Bryan podcast?
No, of course there is. Obviously, I've been listening to podcasts since podcasts were cool, before even Samsung even had access to podcasts. And
that's a swear word, yeah, Dave, by the way.
Really?
Samsung.
Yeah, well, exactly.
In case you haven't noticed, there's quite a few shares in Apple in this room.
So right now, I've always listened to like self-improvement stuff. Joe Rogan obviously is I mean, he's massive, but there's a bunch, I can't really think of any off the top of my head. But if we are getting to that part of the show where you're asking me what I listen to, audiobooks, I listen to a hell of a lot of audiobooks, and I think.
So you see, Amazon sold more audiobooks last year than they did actual Kindle books. So e-readers, they sold more on audio than they did on Kindle for the first time. So it's been catching for a long time, and now audio is actually overtaken that. And one of the things that they're building in, if you take a guy, for example, a guy I like his books, and that Douglas Murray. Douglas has been on lots of podcasts as well. So it actually ties in. When you search for him, it's like he has his books, he has the podcast, not that he has a podcast, but he has the podcast he's been on. And what's quite nice today with us, I mean, when we put in who are the authors of today's show, it's going to be myself, Ryan, and Dave Roux. So if someone looks for you, you can actually find some of your content on someone else's podcast. Again, it goes back to the value of podcasting, which I think is pretty cool.
No, it's massive.
Very cool.
It's massive. The value of what we're doing here is sometimes quite difficult to actually accept how big it's getting and actually understand the reach that it has.
It's such a new medium in so many ways, and it's nice to be a part of.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's all those big deals that happen on these established podcasts. Obviously, the Joe Rogan one comes to mind. Where, to sign an oak over from YouTube onto another platform, Spotify, had a huge signing bonus. And I mean, that's just oaks talking around a table. It's exactly what's going on. Yeah,
it's crazy. We're not quite there yet, unfortunately.
Oh, he's got 10 years on us.
Couple of weeks.
Come on.
A few more episodes. When we get to 100, I reckon we'll make it. Obviously, Dave, one of our things is we like to have a bit of a chat about the news, and you can't get away from what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. And there's always an aviation angle with any story. That's the one thing that we've discovered. There's an endless amount of content on the airline news side. And Ryan, we've spoken about the pandemic, this virus for a long time. I get the impression we're not going to be talking about that too much anymore.
Well, the news has stopped.
It stopped. It's over.
Yeah.
Putin ended COVID.
Yeah. Thanks to him.
Right there. I mean, I actually got the sense that was going to happen the day the news broke of this Russian invasion. That was my first thought. Well, there goes COVID. Thank goodness for that.
Really?
And you can actually see it. I mean, I ended up in hospital last week for a little bit.
Let's talk about that quickly. So my mate, obviously you would, if you follow the show, you'll notice that we weren't on live last week. We didn't push out a show because I decided to give my esteemed colleague a week off, a well-deserved week off.
I thought it was for holiday though.
It was, and he ended up in hospital.
Yeah, just my luck,
Sunstroke or what?
No.
So can you recommend any nice travel hospitals that people might want to go to?
Absolutely would. I tell you what, the Shelley Beach Hospital in Shelley Beach.
Any nurses that you want to give a shout out to there as well?
Yeah. Should I forget her name because I was so drugged up, but she was awesome. The whole crew down there, they were like, they sorted us out quick. Spent a night in hospital, but enough about war stories. The point was, you get there and you think, nah, shit, I'm going to get rushed to the ER, and I'm going to have to go through all this COVID bureaucracy. And it wasn't. It was like, take your temperature, boop, and then you go, and then that was it.
Yeah,
it was like, well,
yeah.
It's evident.
Because also taking your temperature has proved to be so valuable in the last 2 years.
Exactly. Your ID number,
36.2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, what a joke. But doesn't it put things into perspective a little bit?
It does.
We've sat here and talked about numbers and this and that and all bunch of rubbish, and here we are in a real horrendous situation, and the Ukraine there. It's terrible. But there is an aviation angle to this whole story.
There's a big aviation angle.
And it goes we can talk about supply chain issues, we can talk about how fuel's going to go up, we can talk about aircraft having to bypass airspace and things. It's sort of endless. But I did on Tuesday night, I joined a webinar with the guys from the Air Current, John Ostrauer and his team, and it was talking about the supply chain issue mainly titanium. So if we want to talk about a little angle here, you see this war break out on the news and you think, well, at least it doesn't affect us. It's horrendous. You're watching it. It's a terrible thing.
So far away.
It's so far away, but the world is so small now.
Exactly.
Hey, it's affecting everything. It affects everything. And this webinar was with John Ostrauer and the guy Kevin Michaels, and they spoke about. I'll go over it quickly a bit because it's worthwhile. Titanium plays such a big role in aviation.
Yeah.
So SR-71 Blackbird, the Americans needed a better metal than aluminium. So they went in search of the stuff. There was no supply chain back then. And they needed something that was as tough but could withstand high temperatures and all the rest. And as you can imagine, titanium was one of those things. So Russia doesn't produce a huge amount of what they call titanium sponge. So titanium gets mixed with a few other compounds. It gets the chloride taken out. Eventually, it makes the sponge, and then that sponge goes into a mill, and they actually mill out landing gear, all these things. And that's where Russia comes into it. So they play a big role on that side of things. Now, Boeing, obviously, in the last year and a half, they haven't been producing a huge amount of airplanes. So they have quite a lot of titanium sitting in the corner office over there. So they don't need any at the moment. But if you have a look at a few other companies, 100% of the titanium on Embraers comes from Russia.
Yeah.
It's about 60% for Airbus, a bit less for Boeing, and obviously Boeing not using any at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's the actual mill product that Russia creates that you can't now get hold of. Now on the older gen aircraft, not such a big deal, but on the 350, the Airbus 350 and 787s, the new 777X, it's a big deal. So are we in a situation now where what's going to happen is up for debate, I suppose. But you can't just pick up titanium like you would. On the news this morning before I came to work, they were talking about some other substance that's used in microchips. So now they're saying there could be a shortage of microchips and devices like you've got there, Ryan. And it's just a snowball effect. It's massive.
Yeah, it's worrying because I almost want to hesitate and say we're probably going from one pandemic
to an even worse one.
Yeah. Because, like you said, I mean, fuel supply. You know, there's panic stations at the moment about the price of oil.
Well, so it could go to 40
rand a liter.
40 rand a liter
by the end of the year in South Africa. I mean, yeah.
And there's no Teslas to go and buy,
and in South Africa that wouldn't help you anyway. So
yeah, man, it's worrying, man, because I mean, any kind of parts that you're looking for at the moment, there's a shortage on laptops, phones, cars, all the kind of stuff already, and that's just due to the previous pandemic that we've had, and now this, hopefully it doesn't flip and affect us too badly.
Dave, obviously you're more involved on the GA side than us. If fuel is that like a big thing at the moment? I mean, you've got these races. There's an expense involved.
Absolutely.
And if that expense is doubled, then people start looking at it. So it's not a good thing. I mean, it can't be a good thing. And it's something that you almost need to encourage people. Please carry on with what your original plans were, because
100%. But, and everyone's been hectically worried about just the fuel prices and the fuel hikes that we've had now. I mean, some airfields, it's 22, 23, 24 rand a liter of avgas. And I just say, oh, no, that's why there's not much flying going on. But like you take, and I'm not saying this is not a problem and it's not like the situation is not special. The fact is, like every year, or for 20 years ago, 50 years ago, everyone's like, oh, fuel price.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, it's not a new thing.
It's not a new thing.
Yeah.
And like, we still find, even at these high prices that we're at now, everyone's flying. Everyone still is, not everyone, like, 99% of the guys are still going to go, okay, cool. I'm still going to go to this breakfast fly in on the GA side. I'm still going to do something.
So everyone's flying unless you fly for Saks, SA, or Mango.
You're talking about GA. And every one of those guys that happens to own your own area or building your own RV8, Gavin, you will be flying.
Yeah.
So, but guys are still flying, and people want to use it as like, well, they're not entering our events and they're not coming to our fly-ins. It must be the fuel price. Maybe, but they are going to other places. You know what I mean? Yeah. But to answer your question, looping back around, Brian, is that I mean, a sudden double in the price is definitely going to hamper Oak's progress and
flight schools as well.
Flight schools, huge.
Yeah, and they've been the busiest out of any flying institution the last couple of years.
Quite an interesting topic, Ryan, before you jump in there as well.
Yeah.
We've been quite sort of pro software subscriptions, things like that, and we use a lot of them. We use some to actually host the show. And if you stay with the airline side, there's two big software companies that look after things like ticketing and scheduling. Amadeus is one. I think they German, European German. And then there's one called Sabre, which is American. Now, those are the two big software companies in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the Russian airlines, Aeroflot included, they used that software. Now, without that software, you can't actually fly. Now, the Americans have obviously pulled that software. So it's not even the hardware. We're talking about landing gear and all this stuff. Software could cripple the airline. A simple subscription like you have for Netflix or whatever it is could actually cripple the airline. And it's something that we should talk about more, because how much do we rely on software? I mean, we rely on it for everything. I mean, we've got this whole show relies on software. The systems we use here at Simero is software. So if that starts getting pulled,
no, the effects are far-reaching. Software, as you mentioned, satellites.
Yeah,
satellites are controlled by software, and
so if you can't,
I'm almost like, should I go there or shouldn't I? But I mean, the US, the European Union, Russia themselves are all the three big major players in who controls satellites, and we rely on satellites heavily for everything. So yeah, like you say, pal, software. It's frightening to see how far this thing can go. So let's hope that sanity prevails and this thing gets curbed and roped in pretty quickly.
Yeah. COVID went on a lot longer than we expected. Hopefully this is a lot shorter.
Yeah.
Than we expect.
So.
I don't want to jinx anything, but then I probably shouldn't say it. But I'm going to say
yeah, shut up, David. Yeah. Going back local, I'm getting a bit hurtful of these passengers that have a event on an airline.
Yeah.
And
on a public forum.
And they're taking their video and they're shouting and they're even moving their arm around to show how turbulent it was. Come had an engine failure the other day. And what did this one moron say? The scariest moments of my life. Well, he's obviously had a pretty chilled life because being in the back of an airline with a Comair captain looking after flame out is probably not the scariest.
It's like a non-event in the most.
Yeah. I say moron in a kind way.
Most diplomatic.
Yeah. No, but it's got out of control a little bit with social media, hasn't it? It's a little bit. People are so uneducated on the subject, and they come out with all these ridiculous things. I laughed at Comair's reply on Twitter. He says there was a technical issue with the engine, but it did not blow up as others were mentioning. Yeah.
That's actually, in reality, it's scarier to be driving your car on the highway on a South African road than it is to be in the back of an airplane where the engine, even if it was exploding, I'm pretty sure it's still a fairly controllable event.
Yeah.
And wouldn't be as dramatized as most public make it out to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not by a long shot.
Just shooting back around to software again. Did you see that Ukrainian president speaking? He was. They did one with Joe Rogan actually, where he's talking, but it's not his voice and it's not his words. How scary is that? How much you can create a war? You can actually take what we're saying here and totally dub it and totally change it around, and it looks exact. Again, it's like a software thing, but it's quite a scary thing. People need to be aware of what's out there, and just to be careful. Don't get suckered into these things.
Don't trust the fake news, man.
Exactly.
Too much of it around. Did you see they have announced finally the Air Service License Council in South Africa?
Finally.
Yeah.
It's about time.
Yeah.
But it's a double-edged sword, this, because they had to announce the council, but the fact that they haven't had this council has stopped. In other words, I think even SA Express still have the original routes are still available to them. And the reason that they are is because the council hasn't been there. So no one has been able to go along to the council to say, these routes aren't being used, we want them. So obviously any value that was in SA Express is obviously going to get taken up. But the same goes for SAA not using particular routes, obviously Mango not using particular routes. And it could bite them. Apparently it goes a bit deeper, this Takatso deal with SAA. They needed that license council in place for the deal to actually go through. So it's not like just it's a little bit. We'll have to see what happens.
It's not just the admin profile, a faux pas. It has a little far-reaching consequences.
There's always a back angle to everything.
It goes a bit deeper. Yeah.
Staying local though, something a bit more positive and exciting. Eswatini Air.
Yes.
Have you seen?
Yes.
They finally announced, well, I think they're very close to launching their first flights.
We've been training them here, David Samero, the Royal Eswatini guys.
Yeah. Lovely.
New airline. They've actually employed
some of our ex-colleagues.
Okay.
And it's they got good backing. They got the right aircraft for the routes they're going to do.
Yeah.
And
what sort of machines are they going to be using?
They in ERJ 145s.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
At
least there's someone else to compete with Airlink. But they wish them all the best. Good bunch of guys, really good bunch of guys. they yeah,
Nice opportunity for the guys. I think there's
few and far between the jobs at the moment.
few and far between the jobs, but I've noticed that some of the ex-Mango guys looking to Dubai, getting some starting dates at Fly Dubai.
Yeah,
I've seen that's quite positive.
Yeah,
and then there's obviously a bunch of applications for the guys going across the pond to the US as well, which is also quite encouraging.
Yeah, very encouraging.
Yeah, man. There's definitely movement. Like you said, not only to Fly Dubai, a couple of our mates have even got their dates back for Emirates.
Yeah.
Jason Northwood's headed back, and
I think everyone's going back.
Yeah,
but how cool is that?
It's lekker. It really is. It's magnificent to see it finally happening, and I mean, long may this prosper. Hey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't want to jinx anything here, but just
then shut up.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell the podcast king to shut up at this time.
This fuel thing scares me. I won't lie. It does scare me that there's another element, but it's not quite the same, eh? It's a something that can be managed, I suppose.
Look, we as a financial advisor, we're always looking at the markets and seeing trends and all that kind of stuff. And any fuel crisis in the past is actually already priced into the market.
Okay.
So whether you're going to see a double in fuel price, it's not going to be long lived. Again, I'm not an analyst of any sort, but just in the past, 9/11, all these different things where the fuel price has gone, or the oil price has gone over $100 a barrel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's short-lived. It definitely comes back. So I wouldn't be too worried about it now.
I fully agree. I'm of the same thought process there.
Look, I also need to have this fact checked, but I think out of this,
have you ever had anything fact checked?
No.
And Dave, you do realize that you're on a show where the advert says bad financial advice.
Yeah,
cover this up.
So
cover the Pilotinsure. Yeah. Except today, and I actually changed it on the when I put out the live show notes. I said I took the bad financial advice out because I knew Dave was on the show. And he definitely doesn't produce bad financial advice.
Right, don't look there, guys.
Yeah.
Don't look there.
How's that for a caveat?
Yeah.
Well,
I love it.
Fact check is. I was going to say a caveat for me talking out of my ass, but it's not quite. But no, I read somewhere the other day that there's actually opportunity out of this because there is a massive oil gas supply in northern Mozambique, and it might force the guys to really open up those lines, and who knows, maybe there's something that comes out of that. So
the Mozambicans are known for their
efficiency,
peri chicken.
Their R&Rs.
Let's see what happens.
What can you do? You got to take the positive side of it, and you got to carry on and see the opportunity wherever it takes you.
Yeah,
Dave, going back to you a bit for the end, but we've praised your decision making and starting the podcast. But just to go into Pilotinsure a bit, obviously it's not a small business. It's grown into a decent sized business. And a lot of the people we've been talking to or talking about has been about starting new businesses. And a lot of them are small. They're one person businesses. And there's been lots of challenges that people have come across along the way. Banking systems, online systems, whatever it might be. And one of the reasons we've spoken about it is so that people can be aware.
Yeah.
And a couple of the guys we've had on, we've almost said to them, you can't take this as a side hustle, and when things pick up, you're just going to laugh it off. You've put in too much work. It must now grow into a proper business that lasts a long time.
Correct.
You and France have obviously come across challenges along the way.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those things? You don't have to go deep into the financial side of it, but I mean, there must have been challenges along the way that I think people can learn from.
Absolutely, man. And this actually speaks a lot to the stuff that we're doing at Steady Climb, which we'll mention now. But in terms of, in a small business, it's a lot different to where you're working in a corporate, or you're hammering one tong, in a big factory, as an analogy, you don't appreciate the whole value chain. You don't appreciate what the legal department's doing. You don't know what the accounting department's doing. You have no idea, when in a small business, you become from receptionist to accountant to podcast host to flipping salesperson, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of challenges, I mean, upskilling yourself is probably the biggest one, you know, and getting you know, just and not shying away from and ignoring something, you know, when something comes along and it looks too difficult, my advice out there is, you know, run towards that problem, eat that frog, because, you know, these problems, and I'm not talking about Pilotinsure specifically, but in anything, any business where, you know, you leave something, it's going to fester and become a bigger problem. So if you are starting a side hustle out there and you are looking for, you know, at least one piece of advice, eat that frog. Go and work your budget every single day. Go and read up on legal terms and legal conditions that will affect your business, and upskill yourself, but at the same time employ someone. Don't be scared to talk to and reach out to a legal person or an accountant or whatever else you might need. Don't be scared to do that. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that will provide free advice, you know, and give you a bit of guidance up front for a while.
I like that, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, that speaks very much to what we've spoken about. You've got to suck at something a bit, eh? You've got to start and you've got to be a bit crap. No, but I mean, you speak about, you know, spoken a lot about it, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, I can't watch the original shows of the podcast. But not only that, Ryan, I mean, look at us in the Samero framework, the original documents that we were creating, and the course content and things like that. If I look at them now, I'm embarrassed. But as long as you improve along the way, what else can you do?
Again, it's that whole, I still can't remember that quote. I actually need to write it down and keep it somewhere. But that whole pursuit of perfection, you know,
just do it.
Yeah, just go and do it. Like we said earlier, when we first started this podcast, I never have really been the best public speaker.
You're still cuck.
I'm still shit. I'm very shit. But I'm getting better. And those first couple of episodes were horrendous. And look, I think in my mind it was all like, what else am I going to do?
Who else is sitting in that chair?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And he's made he's made it his own so much to the point that if he's not here because he's spending a weekend off in the Shelley Beach hospital, that we can't actually host the show. Only Ryan can end up in hospital on his week, and there's 1 week that he has off the entire year.
But I want to say something to that point, and it's also the audio book that I'm reading at the moment. It's called The 5 a.m. Club. I don't know if anyone else has read it, but
no.
Give it a good listen or a read. It's well worth it. Robin Sharma. But
so that's this week's Bryan Advisory then.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
The 5 a.m. Club.
Robin Sharma.
Yeah, Robin Sharma. It's brilliant.
He wrote The Monk Who Stole My Ferrari. Yeah,
that's right.
Was that correct?
Fact check. Yes,
as far as I know. Yeah, because I've listened to some of his other stuff, pretty much on that Mindset Mentor podcast with Ryan.
Yes.
Rob Dahl, sorry, is his name. Rob Dahl. But no.
You know what you haven't done today? Are you going to give any discounts on any Pilotinsure product?
Actually, I was going to make a chirp about that earlier. And I was looking, let me just.
Well, to speak to that point, we definitely get favorable rates. Okay, but I just want to say this is that, you know, while we push the right product, we get the right definitions into every single policy. We do have a very, very favorable pricing model that works out very nicely. It's actually not set by us at all. It's set by the insurance companies, but due to the quality of the book at Pilotinsure, we get some really, really good rates. So just putting that out there.
Can attest to that. There's, as I said, quite a few people that come through our premises that have used you guys for a while, and they all like the hands-on approach, and
awesome.
Appreciate that. And then I also just very quickly want to work this into the conversation somehow. I've been waiting for an opportunity, but I'm just gonna jar it in there.
Chuck it in.
I know there's a lot of guys watching from Hong Kong, from China, from Canada, and all that kind of stuff. You know, I know that when you go over there, it gets messy. Like you say, people don't like paperwork. It gets difficult. There's a lot of uncertainty around where you're going to live and what you're going to do and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to say, don't throw out your South African insurance policy that you've got, because it's contrary to popular belief and all the other things that are going on in the country. The insurance framework in this country and the definitions and the pricing that South Africa has got is world class.
Really,
it's actually top 3, if not the best in the world.
I would not have known that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really, really good. And I mean, we've tested the products from all over the world. To be absolutely fair, the US has some of the worst. Okay. Canada a little bit better, but the rest of the guys. But I'm just saying, don't throw out your South African insurance policy. And saying that, there's been so many changes across all different insurers and the industry as a whole. We have a lot of guys, all our Air Macau guys, all reviewing their stuff with us, all our Cathay guys, all the Emirates guys. There's a lot of reviewing going on, and there's a lot newer, better products that I don't really want to talk about because it could constitute financial advice. I'm just saying there are a lot of changes. So, I mean, get in touch if you have any questions,
Awesome.
Shout.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That's
Dave. I'm
awesome.
pretty
Yeah,
sure
I would not have known that.
I'm pretty sure our mates overseas that are listening will appreciate that and sort of derive some comfort knowing that there is something of value that they can reach out in South Africa.
No, they can't, because they're sitting in a quarantine thing. They're probably not allowed to listen to any foreign podcasts. They're still going crazy in that place. I'd love to meet the people that are making the policies there in Hong Kong at some point and find out what was going through their minds.
Yeah.
But there's no time for that, Ryan. You know why there's no time for that?
No, because
we had to make the show rather early today, and I know a lot of our regular listeners haven't been able to join us.
And we have to cut it short.
And yeah, exactly. But we do have, of course, Leon listening to us. Good afternoon. He's written a few things. Yeah, Janet, of course, listens to us. Duncan Gillespie. Now, Duncan's a pretty. He is. He's up there in aviation in Africa, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. No,
and Dave, I'm sorry, but he says the premier podcast in Africa. So you're still going to have to, you've got a lot of work to do here.
I'm going to grind.
Yeah.
Just remember, Dave, there's 2 O's in Goose.
There's a bit of guys commenting here off LinkedIn as well. No, thanks, guys. And France, of course. Safety and success is a massive, big deal. Taking safety across South Africa is a huge need. COVID helped us make it possible to take it online and to reach more people. Exactly. That's exactly what we chatting about.
I didn't ever actually got to explaining what our second podcast is, and that's the second one, is the safety success.
That's the one that was on that you did it live at Rand.
At Rand Airport, correct. We had Kelly Bierman, Roger Pozzoli, and Megan Stevens on that one. That's our second series, and again, it just got spawned out of. Let's put a meeting together. Let's put a camera in front of it, and boom.
And it was nice to see the youngsters walking around there, and all sort of shows a bit of a vibe in aviation, which is really good.
We had 120 people in that audience just there.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. All pilots.
Oh, awesome. I really enjoyed it today. It's not going to be the last time you're on, Dave. I don't want to harp on about this Eskom thing, but we are early today because of load shedding. So for those of you overseas, what that means is our state-owned power supply hasn't prepared enough for the amount of energy that the country needs, and has to shut down certain parts of the country at certain points to supply power to the rest of the country.
That was a brilliant summary of load shedding. I hope someone recorded that.
Yeah. I've got a description for it, but
Ryan's description
not going to be allowed.
More swear words. And I was asked by one of our listeners to not be so nasty about Eskom, because there are good people working there, which I'm sure they are. But man, have they disrupted the South African economy at a time where it's most unneeded. I mean, it really is horrendous. And if we think it affects our podcast, can you imagine how much it affects other business?
No, it hurts business.
People have to call to say, can I come through for the meeting now? Have you got power? And it's just total disruption. And I suppose it sort of leads itself to South Africans' resilience. We've had to work around COVID, work around our power supply. It's been quite horrendous, but we'll manage. Dave, we're going to have you on again. It's been fantastic talking to you today. I think a long friendship ensues. We've all discovered, yeah, that we're big fans of some Johnny Walker wisdom,
Oh.
and we'll have you on the show again sometime soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cannot wait. Thank you so much.
Just last thing, other than where can people get hold of you?
So steadyclimb.co.za, pilotinsure.co.za, speedrall.co.za. Come to those websites and then all those respective Facebook pages. Get
Awesome.
hold of me.
Awesome.
Cool.
Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, pal.
All
Thanks,
the yours,
Dave.
John.
Nice one, Ryan.
Take it
Thank
easy.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until
Catch you
next
next
week. Goodbye for now.
What a joy.
Cheers, guys.